The Shepherd and the Shrink podcast is brought to you by Red Brick Kitchen and Bar, downtown Main Street, Dexter, Michigan.
Welcome today. My name is Dr. Matt Hook, and I am the Shepherd.
And I'm Dr. Marty Fletcher, and I am the Shrink.
Good morning, Dr. Marty Fletcher.
Good morning, Matt. So last week we were talking about walking in the Spirit, and a lot of it was about prayer. But today we're going to talk about
forgiveness and unforgiveness. You know, what I'm excited about is today's session can really be a prison break for a lot of people.
a prison break.
I think that when we walk around carrying resentment and forgiveness and the anger that can't help but manifest in that, we have put ourselves into prison.
For sure. And what I'm seeing is that people don't understand what forgiveness is. They don't know how to even begin forgiving, and they also feel like if they don't want to give up resentments because they're going to be missing something really vital in their life. So
I think people think about the fuel that hanging on to something gives them for living, and they've completely wrecked their lives because they're being fueled by this crazy thing that I call unforgiveness, which shows up red squiggly lines in Word as not a real word.
Yes, but I though, like if you could offer someone a drug and say, hey, this one doesn't make you mellow, this one makes you feel that, nobody would take that drug, would they? That feeling of, you know.
Right,
so
right. But we carry it around with us all the time.
Yes, world's full of that. So I'm hoping what we can do is we can really get into it, see what psychology has to say about resentments and forgiveness, and then also how that dovetails in with the gospel.
Oh, yeah.
So here's what I was hoping you could do. So the disciples asked Jesus, will you show us how to pray? And you know, if you're going to ask, he's going to come up with a model for it. Could you take us through the Lord's Prayer and why it's so important, and why because so many of us have memorized it, and we don't really get inside the prayer, we just say it, but man, this is a rich, rich prayer, right?
Yeah, and line by line you can deliver it, and you can meditate line by line, or just think about line by line. Our Father, in other words, God wants us to address him in familial terms. And who art in heaven.
Well, can I say one thing about the Father thing?
Yeah.
If he's our Father, what does that say about us?
We are the children of the King, princes and princesses in God's eyes. Yeah, in his story, that's what we are.
So we'll put a pin in that, because we'll talk about what it means to forgive yourself and if you're worth forgiving. But go ahead.
Yeah. Hallowed be thy name. In other words, holy, set apart, be thy name. The problem is, most of the time when I pray, I'm praying more stuff like this: hallowed be my name.
Right.
Like, I want my name to be famous. I want my name to be lifted
up. You don't do that anymore. You're humble. So you're being humble now.
I think sometimes.
Do you? Okay, I'll take you.
You can be like, I want somebody to see me this way.
Okay.
I want to be strong. I want somebody to see me as respectable. As
you
smart,
weren't. Did you have that thought when you picked out that sweater?
What is with my sweater?
It's all right.
Hallowed be thy name, God. He's still the center. You know, if God is really the center of everything, of all reality, all existence, anytime we live with God outside the center, it means it can't be as good as if we live with God as the center. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Will you say something about that? Thy kingdom come. What does that mean? Is it just a prediction, or to me it means a lot more than that?
Yeah, I think that God designed the world very different from how it is now. I think that we live in a world with brokenness, with loneliness, with anger, with unforgiveness, with people walking all over each other, and the need for forgiveness. God never designed the world that way. God designed it perfectly. But God also gave us free will to be in a relationship with him. In other words, we could choose not God. Yeah. And I think that explains a whole lot. It goes all the way back. If you read the Bible, or if you're interested, Genesis chapter 3 kind of explains everything.
It does. But thy kingdom come, if the kingdom is coming, and that's a confident statement for me. To me, it's a declarative statement. Thy kingdom come is coming, then I get to be a part of it. I get to participate in it, and it's on me to participate in it. That's awesome. This prayer connects me into real life. It's not just an abstraction.
And you can bring that goodness with you when you are walking, like we said last week, in the Spirit. When you're bringing love, joy,
Yes.
peace, patience.
And thy kingdom come takes away most of the worry if you truly are confident in that.
Yeah.
Most of the worry about the future.
Yeah.
It's all God wins, and I get caught up in these little things. And okay.
Right.
So thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Right, his will.
We can live that out now. It's not, everybody wants to follow God's will and they see it as some pinprick out on the horizon, like you're floating on a boat, and you know the old story, if you're 2 degrees off target, you end up 80 miles from your target when you go. But I believe that God's will can take place right now wherever you are, wherever we are, when we choose to live out what he has said is good and is of me.
Right, that's important because we're going to have to forgive too, and that is God's will. Forgiveness is God's will.
And it doesn't mean that crap hasn't happened in our lives.
Plenty.
From people.
Plenty.
On purpose.
Yeah, and me too.
Let alone neglect.
Have you ever hurt anybody? Of course. So,
Yeah.
thy will be done.
On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. In other words, God's saying, give me today. Jesus is saying, pray this way. Give us today our daily bread. Yes, our physical needs.
Yes.
But also just enough for today. Today is all we have to work with.
Yeah, right.
And you said something really interesting last time about anxiety coming from not living in the present.
Yeah, it's a future, usually future. It's time travel one way, usually the future, sometimes the past. But if you're looking back and beating yourself over something you think that you did or didn't do, that can be in the past. But generally it's like the kingdom, it doesn't feel like the kingdom is coming. Right. It feels like something really bad's coming, and I better get ready for that. That was the anxiety. Yep.
Yeah, to live always on guard and never at that peace.
Right, but today, just my daily bread, my needs, give me what I need today. But that's also, again, it's a confidence statement. Do you pray that with a feeling of assurance and confidence?
It really is. I don't think about it all the time when I work my way through the Lord's Prayer. One of the things, though, and it kind of ties in with that, is I heard somebody say once, Jesus said, give us today our daily bread. He didn't say, ask God for a whole week's supply.
A whole loaf.
Yeah, give us today what we need,
Right.
And tomorrow, give us today what we really need. And really, I think about it,
Daily
what
bread.
I've got to do is get through this day till my head hits the pillow. And that's all I have to tackle. Abraham Lincoln said the best thing about the future is it comes at us one day at a time. If people are feeling anxiety, if they're feeling hanging on to this unforgiveness, if they're feeling the anger that comes from that, you just need to realize you don't have to deal with everything coming at you and all the resentments, but you need to deal with today.
Yes.
Because the future only comes at us one day at a time.
That's good. So I would have a little bit of a twist for me. I don't need to just get through the day. I need to get through the day with his will being done. In a sense of peace, a sense of purpose, and a sense of meaning. And maybe, and when it's really good, a sense of just kind of like a light awe, you know what I mean? Of like, wow, I get to do this.
I am not going through this day alone. This is not my day. It's Scripture says this is the Lord's day.
Yeah, and I'm lucky enough
He made.
to be involved.
And I get to be a part of it.
Yeah,
I get to be a
exactly.
witness of it. Yeah. Give us today our daily bread. And lead us not into temptation. But
Which
deliver us.
that's a weird phrasing, I think, too, that people don't understand. It's like, he's not going to lead you into temptation. What we're doing is saying, help us avoid the temptation.
Yeah.
Right.
And he says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That's a loaded statement.
That's right.
Because if I'm saying, God, you forgive me the way I'm forgiving everybody else,
Yeah.
forgive me my trespasses as we forgive those who trespass
That's so good,
against
because
us.
I read it like that, too. Like, to the degree that I forgive, allow
asking
people to
God
forgive me.
to.
And there's some great scripture in there, too, that we can get to later on, because I thought that, like, wow, this is, like, psychologically true, even. Forgiveness is there or it's not. No forgiveness for you, no forgiveness for me. It just works that way experientially, too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
So
think
good, yes.
we live in a world where everyone's going around collecting debts that they feel people owe them.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that in a bit.
All right.
Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Not mine as a kingdom.
No, that, pronoun trouble.
So good.
Just
Right.
like Bugs Bunny.
So I'm wondering people don't know what forgiveness is. Okay. Maybe you can say what you think what do you think forgiveness is, or what is unforgiveness? That'd be better, because you've thought about that a lot, it sounds.
Yeah. Unforgiveness is keeping track. It is rehearsing everything anybody has ever done to hurt you, intentionally, unintentionally. It is keeping a record of wrongs done against you. You become an accountant.
In order to do what? Like an emotion wants to complete itself. Like, we don't just hang around being angry because it's fun. Like I said, like nobody would take a pill to feel that feeling. An emotion wants to complete itself. It wants to do something. What does that feeling of unforgiveness, what does it want?
I would say it wants equilibrium.
Okay.
On the dark side of myself, the evil side of myself, it wants revenge.
Yeah.
It's do to you what you did to me, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Right.
You know, which when that was said in the Old Testament, what they were saying is don't overdo it.
Right. Don't go beyond what someone
Yeah.
has done.
Yeah.
Right.
But now we have this opportunity to completely diffuse.
Yeah, to fulfill that law and go further, because that's what I think Jesus Christ did.
And I think forgiveness is releasing the other person from the obligation that they owe you because they stepped all over you, or they hurt you, or they said something against you, or they did something truly evil against you.
Okay.
I think that's why it's a prison break, because we build up every resentment I hang on to is like a brick in this wall that I've surrounded myself with. And you get enough bricks, and pretty soon you can't even see out.
Okay, so what is it confining us from? Because in prison, you're confined. You're not able to be free out in society. What is it keeping us from? It's locking us into something, but what's it keeping us from?
I think a fresh start. I think freedom. Unforgiveness keeps us from any kind of resolution. We think unforgiveness is protecting us, but we end up on the flip side. It's a total lie. That we end up being able to move on with our lives. They say unforgiveness, refusing to, if I refuse to forgive you, it may have been one act that you did to me, but because I'm not forgiving you for it, I am playing that act in my mind over and over and over and over. It's like Satan loves it when a sin is committed. And he wants nothing more than for that sin to have a life of its own. And that hurt will continue to have a life of its own until I put a stop to it. And the only way that I can do that is the power of forgiveness, which I may not have in myself. And that's why we need to talk about God in us, Christ in us, the Holy Spirit, enabling us to let go of what we need to let go of.
Right. I think that's all correct. And what it does is it assures us that we'll have no peace. So the act was done. The hateful act, the violent act, whatever it was, the evil act maybe was done. Well, now it's inside me, and it's going to travel with me, and I'm going to carry that around. That same bitterness that you showed me, now it's in me, and it's made a home, and now I take it with me, and it just disrupts peace. I think, so Christ wasn't telling us not to, he told us to forgive not for the benefit of others. Right. Not necessarily, although it would benefit others, I'm sure.
Right. Completely.
It's for you, because so you can be in communion with them, because you can't have love and hate at the same time.
It starts removing the bricks that we build up all around ourselves. Let me ask you this question, doctor. When a patient comes to see you, how many of them say, I'm having a hard time forgiving someone because of X, Y, Z? Is that the leading thing that they bring?
No way.
How does that play out?
Well, because they cling to it as if it's something valuable.
So it's not the presenting issue that they come to see you about?
It's there, but it hasn't been, they don't diagnose
it
as that. Because generally it's what other people do. And they will just ferociously cling to that. Because like you said, it gives us the illusion that something important is being done. Right?
By hanging on to
Yeah, but nobody comes in and say, look, I need some help forgiving someone.
What would they say? What would be something somebody would come to see you about that they would say? That leads to an act of forgiveness.
I'll give you a great case study, and you know about this too. So I have permission to do this.
Okay.
I have a patient, and his family, at 14 years old, his dad and his brother were murdered by the neighbor. They had a dispute and they were murdered. this, you know who I'm talking about too. And like I said, we have permission to talk about it. I talked to him this morning because he's actually going to write about it. He's being public about it. And he's going through that process of forgiving right now. But initially, when it happened, it takes a long time to forgive, right? It's not an event. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I forgive you, and then I go on hating and having anger towards you and wanting revenge on you. It is an ongoing process that happens. But he's been carrying that around. But initially, it was unthinkable. And I'd be careful. There was no way I was going to tell him, hey, you got to forgive the people who butchered your father and brother. There was no way I could do that right then. It was a path of softening his heart. Because when you and understand what forgiveness is, it's not a betrayal of your family. You're not the sheriff. You're not God. That belongs to the Lord. Vengeance. Anything He wants to do, and trust me, it'll happen. You don't get away with anything like that. But what he came to learn is this: all he's got to lose is hatred. That's it. The only thing he had to lose by forgiving is hatred. There's nothing valuable in that. Okay. And he wrote this very interesting. I don't think I'll read it here, but he'll put it in his book, where God let him see a glimpse of that. He wrote me, and because we had a long conversation, he was struggling over the holidays and things like that, and with so much anger, so much hatred, so much pain. And we had a really good conversation about the nature of forgiveness and all this. And he softened up. He said he wept for a half hour, and he wrote to me, he said, I haven't felt this peace since when I was 14, so before that happened. So God let him see that, okay, and let him feel that and the relief of it. Now he knows the value of forgiveness. It's not just a good idea. It's not just what someone's telling you to do. He knew that it was good for him, and it was good. And then a week later, guess what happened? The resentment came back. It always does, because it's an ongoing process. But he got to have a glimpse of that and got to feel what it was like. Like God will give us a look at where we're going to give us confidence, right?
Wow.
What do you think about this? Because when I forgave, because I had lots of bitterness and resentment, because people hurt us, right? Now, I hurt other people, but that wasn't really at the forefront of my mind, is what you did to me, not what I did to you, right?
Right.
And what I learned was this. It got really easy after I felt the goodness that forgiveness is. When I felt the peace, when I felt that I was forgiven. And these quotes like Mark 11:25 started coming out. This is my Bible, by the way. That's his Bible. And this
He's
is my
playing
notes.
solitaire.
Yeah, because my wife goes, oh, what are you doing, checking Facebook or something? No, I'm not checking Facebook. I'm looking at Scripture.
Right.
So, Mark, I really like this a lot. Mark is so to the point, don't you think?
They say Mark was the first of the four Gospels about the life of Jesus written.
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also forgive your trespasses. Okay, that's over and over. That it's one forgiveness. It's not like, I'm forgiven, but you're not. Because psychologically, it's not right. Either the peace is there or the peace isn't there. Resentment against myself and wish for revenge and punishment on myself, it feels the same as if I'm doing it to you. You understand what I mean? The hatred feels the same whether or not I do it to you or not. So I get forgiven, and I go, oh man, this is like not what I expected. And then it got a lot easier to forgive other people. Does that make sense?
I think so, because I think that forgiveness is such an incredible weapon against us. It's an unforgiveness is an incredible prison. I read this quote by Dr. David Belgum, and he was commenting on the claim that up to 75% of people in hospitals today with physical illnesses have sicknesses rooted in emotional causes, saying that these patients are punishing themselves with their illnesses, and their physical symptoms and their breakdowns may be their involuntary confessions of guilt. And the Minirth Meyer Clinic defines forgiveness as the act of setting someone free from an obligation that's the result of a wrong done against you. It's not excusing the behavior. It's not minimizing the wrong that was done. I mean, especially in this case of this man that you're working with. Rather, it is consciously acknowledging the wrong and purposefully choosing to pardon the person who wronged you.
So we know some of the mechanisms at play there, because that's not a metaphor, that actually happens. So if I'm feeling hatred, so I'm just ruminating or chewing over a wrong that was done to me. And look, these can go back to childhood.
Easily.
I had resentments about things that happened in junior high at times if I thought about it. But let's say you just live in that. An emotion is a physical event. It's physiologic, right? What kind of hormones are going through if you're feeling that? Well, the stress hormones. So if I'm even imagining wanting to beat somebody up because of what they did to me, then I have stress hormones. They're released. I have cortisol, adrenaline, I have muscular tension. Now you walk around that for a while, guess what happens? Well, it gets into your sleep, or it gets into your relationships because I'm crabby and you say, you want to go and throw the frisbee. I say, no, I'm okay, I feel bad, whatever. It's a physical event when that happens.
Even if it happened in your childhood.
Yeah, because our memories will, look, if I think of an embarrassing moment, right, and I really give it some attention, I will have a physiologic response. My face might blush or something like that, So we actually produce those, our thoughts can produce feelings.
Emotions are a physical event.
100% they are. Where else? You're not feeling anything in a thought bubble. You know what I mean? Like, here's thoughts don't have feelings.
Right,
like you could think of something. Exactly. Like it's in your body, and if it's in your body, then that means that it has neurotransmission, which is physical. It has hormones. It has neurotransmitters, and that's why. And guess what is really, really, really good for our immune system and really good for our body? What state do you think is good? God likes it.
Rest.
Yeah, joy, rest.
Joy, peace.
Rest and joy kind of go peace, absolutely, because that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, shalom is the old Hebrew word for that.
Yeah, I like that. So how about this? I really like this a lot because, like Christ, the way I understand, as I'm starting to understand him, is this: he was so in touch with reality that he could see the nature of reality even in the physical stuff of the world. Did you see what I mean by that? And a lot of the metaphors, like the trees and I'm the vine and you're the branches, it's like so earthy and organic, but he saw the nature of how God worked, not just through people, but through stuff. Yeah. So I really like this in Matthew 6, when I'm going to read, right, 43 and 45. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and unrighteous. Isn't that just mind-blowing? And that's the way. That is the way. So be like that. Be like your Father in heaven. Now, there's an added advantage to doing that, is that it's really good for you. It's physically good for you, it's good for your relationships, it's good for lots of things. Right?
But it doesn't make good movies.
It doesn't. It's not a Dirty Harry movie.
All the movies about revenge are, they get us, and we want to see it. Think of this man whose neighbor killed his dad and his son, and they got exonerated in the court system or whatever happened. I mean,
so for a while,
so wrong.
So for a while, I was fascinated by studying how the families responded to executions. Right. So you had the person who harmed or murdered your family member or whatever, and you want that revenge. And then they're interviewed afterwards. What do you think that you're hearing? So they say, did that do justice? Did that make it right? What do you think they say?
Emptiness.
They're very disappointed that nothing changed, right? That didn't even any score. It didn't right or wrong.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when we choose to hang on to unforgiveness. It doesn't right any wrong. It doesn't right any score. It just fuels us for more and greater unforgiveness. You talked about Jesus and how he said that. It hit me once. Jesus is the only perfectly normal and sane person who ever lived. We, on the other hand, have sins for friends.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to understand him. God took flesh. The Word became flesh. And he is showing us, because we can't deal with it abstractly. We can't understand God. God took a form, and that's why we're disciples, because we have to study him. If we want to know what he's doing, we have to study him and think about what he's doing, because it's so counterintuitive. Yeah. Like the whole movie genre of let me get you really, really mad, so at the end you can get this release where the villain is murdered. Okay? That is our nature. He showed it to us. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He went right to the cross, asking for forgiveness with that same heart, that same compassion for people while they were torturing him to his death.
Yeah.
He still was able to keep that. I can't do it if somebody, maybe gives me an insult or cuts me off in traffic, And he's like getting...
We got to work on that with you.
No, I mean, I can. I'm better than I was. Let's say that, okay?
One of the things that I think people need to be careful of is the idea of forgiveness means you've got to become best friends with the person again, or you've got to put yourself back in that situation. What do you say to somebody who comes to see you who's at that severe enough of a point that say, wow, I need to see a doctor about
Yes.
this?
So we're to love our self as our neighbors, and we're to love our neighbors as ourselves. God doesn't want anyone hurt, and God doesn't want us hurt. So if you're around someone who has hurt you and will hurt you again,
get away.
God has made no. Now get away without hatred in your heart to say, not only am I going to get away, but I want these guys to die, or I want them to be punished, or whatever. That's the only difference. You'll do the same thing, but we're absolutely able to protect ourselves. So love your neighbor as yourself is a equation.
Yeah.
It doesn't say love everybody else at your expense. Christ never asked us. As a matter of fact, did Christ get away from people?
Yes.
Did he say to get away from people if they
Yes.
don't receive you? He says, brush
the dust off your sandals.
Yeah, right. And not only that, he didn't try to, he got away from people that didn't want any part of his kingdom mission. He didn't take any delight in it.
Right.
But I think he was probably disappointed, when the rich man could have taken the next step and he didn't. I don't think God wanted him punished.
Right.
Jesus wanted him punished at all. So no, we're not. We can accept another human being as an image bearer gone astray.
And be far away from them.
Right, but that is as far as we really have to go to love our enemy. Because if we're going to love our enemy, we can't hate an image bearer. We can despise the behavior, but we don't have to take that acceptance all the way up to adoration. Okay, that we're not required to do that.
If you're struggling with forgiveness, one of the best ways I've heard it described is as a tourniquet. There's a bad part of your body, and you need to make a tourniquet to keep it from spreading to the rest of your body. And forgiveness is like that. When we enable that to happen, it's like we are putting a tourniquet around the evil of the act and what it did, the evil of the carrying of the unforgiveness.
I think that's the
in our
early
own lives.
stage, because I think that the later stage is we're restored. We have perfect peace. In the face of a world that has all sorts of harms, hurts, hatreds, injustices, that we can still have peace. I mean, Christ did it going to the cross.
C.S. Lewis says something where he's talking about a woman in heaven and her husband who tried to get her to pity him throughout their married lives. And this is kind of in a dream thing from the Great Divorce. And she says, I'm sorry, you're trying to get me to go somewhere that is outside of love. And I am in love. And out of love, I will not go. And I think when I have come to realize the forgiveness that I have in Jesus for my own self and my own garbage, I have found this peace. And I am in peace. And out of peace, I will not go.
Yeah.
Out of love, I will not go. And I think forgiveness
so
draws
good,
us
yeah.
completely out of that love, out of that peace, when we hang on to the unforgiveness, the anger and the resentment, and the debt collecting that comes with that.
You're reminding me of, did you see There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis? A couple things you said reminds me of that.
Sounds terrible.
Oh, it's a great movie, man.
Is this a plug?
No, I'm not in that movie. I'm in home movies. So,
I don't want to see those.
No, but here's what it is, because there's a real Christian message that you get to see a guy, like earlier you were mentioning, why are my enemies making so much money? This guy that was his idol, power and money. And you see how that destroys him. By the end of the movie, all of that things that people are going, well, why does he get the money? Why does he get all this fame and all this kind of stuff? His hatred and resentments, and at one point he goes, I built my resentments one at a time. We're going to practice forgiveness, or we're going to practice resentment, and we get good at what we practice.
Wow.
You will get good at what you practice.